When my wife left me for my own brother, she didn't just break my heart. She took everything I had. Our savings, my trust, even the little piece I'd built for our sick boy, Eli. Everyone thought I'd fall apart. Even my parents turned their backs, calling me a failure. But 10 years later, when they all came back laughing, expecting me to still be broken, my son made them regret every choice they ever made. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Hit like, smash that subscribe, and stay until the end, because this story isn't just about betrayal, it's about redemption. My name's Jace Miller, and for most of my 20s, I thought I had the kind of life every man dreamed of, not perfect, but peaceful. I worked hard, came home to a wife I loved, and tucked my little boy, Eli, into bed every night. I was 22 when I married Megan. She was the kind of woman who lit up every room she entered. Blonde hair, soft laughter, eyes that could make you forget your own name. Everyone loved her, especially my parents. They used to say, "You're lucky she even looked your way, Jace." Maybe that should have been my first warning sign. I worked at Henderson's auto shop, a place that smelled of oil, steel, and sweat. Not glamorous, but it paid the bills. Megan stayed home with Eli and managed the little we had. I was proud of us, 2 kids trying to build something real. Then came Tyler, my younger brother. He'd always been the golden boy, charming, funny, smooth-talking. He could sell sand in the desert. Our parents adored him. Mom used to tell me, "You should be more like Tyler, Jace. He's going places." I never resented him. He was my brother, my blood. I defended him even when people called him reckless. When Eli turned 4, his cough started. At first, I thought it was just allergies. But when he began wheezing in the middle of the night, I took him to the hospital. The doctor's face told me everything before his words did. "Your son has a chronic respiratory condition. It won't be easy, but it's manageable with regular treatments." Manageable. That word stuck in my head. Manageable, if you had money. The bills began piling up like a cruel joke. Every time I opened the mailbox, there was another envelope stamped in red. I started taking double shifts at the shop, sometimes 14, 15 hours a day. I came home exhausted, covered in grease, but I kept going because Eli needed me too. That's when things began to change. Megan started going out more. "Just to clear my head," she said. "I'm tired of being cooped up." I didn't argue. She deserved a break. But soon, she was gone late into the night. Her perfume lingered in the hallway long after she'd left. I remember one evening. I came home early. She wasn't there. Eli was asleep on the couch, TV still on. When I checked her phone on the counter, a message popped up before it locked. It was from Tyler. "Tyler, you looked amazing tonight. Don't overthink it. You deserve to feel alive." I froze. My brother? My wife? I wanted to believe there was an explanation. Maybe he was joking. Maybe it was harmless. When Megan got home, she smiled like nothing had happened. "Hey, you're home early," she said, brushing past me. I tried to ask casually, "Did you see Tyler tonight?" Her eyes flickered, just for a second. Then she laughed. "You're being paranoid. He's your brother, Jace." I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. The next morning, Tyler dropped by the shop. He leaned against the hood of a car, flashing that effortless grin of his. "Heard you've been working nonstop, big brother. You need to take it easy." I looked at him and asked, "You've been talking to Megan a lot lately?" He shrugged. "She's lonely, man. You're never home." "I'm just trying to keep her company." Something about the way he said, "keep her company," twisted my stomach. But again, I brushed it off. He was my brother. I'd known him my whole life. He wouldn't do that to me. Days turned into weeks. Eli's treatments got more expensive. I started selling off things, my old guitar, my watch, even Megan's jewelry that she said she didn't wear anymore. I thought she'd understand. Instead, she snapped. "So now I have to live like a poor woman because you can't earn enough?" Her words hit harder than any punch. That night, as I lay awake listening to Eli's breathing machine hum softly, I thought about what she said. Maybe she was right. Maybe I wasn't enough. A few days later, she started dressing differently, fancier, flashier. Her makeup got heavier, her perfume stronger. Tyler still dropped by. He'd stay in the kitchen with her while I fixed Eli's medicine or showered. I'd hear them laugh together, a soft, intimate kind of laughter that didn't belong between siblings-in-law. I tried to ignore it, but the feeling grew like rot. Every night I'd come home, hoping things would go back to normal, and every night they slipped further away. Then came the night that changed everything. Megan was getting ready to meet a friend. She wore a red dress I'd never seen before, tight, expensive looking. I stood in the doorway and said quietly, "Who's the friend?" She paused for a beat, then said, "Jessica." "You don't know her." But I did. Jessica was out of town that week. She'd told Megan herself the day before. I didn't call her out. I just nodded. "All right. Be careful." She looked surprised I didn't argue. Maybe she expected a fight. When she left, Eli came into the room holding his inhaler. "Mom's mad again?" he asked. I forced a smile. "No, buddy. She's just going out for a bit." He nodded, trusting me completely, the same way I trusted her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the couch staring at the door, waiting to hear her keys in the lock. But she didn't come home. Not that night. Not the next. And that's when I realized those cracks in our family weren't small anymore. They were wide, deep, and ready to swallow everything I'd ever loved. I'll never forget that Friday. The air smelled of rain and burnt oil, and all I wanted was to get home to Eli after a 14-hour shift at the shop. I was bone tired, the kind of tired that seeps into your soul, but I kept thinking about how Megan loved my mom's pot roast. I planned to pick up a small one from the store on the way home, thinking maybe, just maybe, we could have a family dinner again. When I pulled up in front of the house, something felt off. The porch light was off. Megan always kept it on for me. The curtains were drawn, and there was no sound, not even the faint hum of the TV that usually played cartoons for Eli. I stepped inside. "Meg." I called softly. Nothing. Then I heard a small whimper from the living room. Eli sat curled up on the couch, clutching his stuffed bear. His cheeks were wet, eyes swollen from crying. "Dad," he sniffled, "Mom's gone." My heart stopped. "What do you mean, buddy?" He pointed toward the kitchen table. There was a folded piece of paper lying next to her empty coffee mug. I picked it up. Megan's handwriting, neat, slanted, the same way she wrote birthday cards. "Jace, I can't live like this anymore. I deserve a real life, not constant struggle. Don't come looking for me. Take care of Eli. He deserves better than this life. Megan." I just stood there, staring at the note until the words blurred. The kitchen cabinets were open, half empty. Her clothes, her jewelry, even Eli's baby photos, gone. I ran to our bedroom. Her drawers were cleared out. The closet door hung open, empty. Something in me broke right then. I grabbed my phone and called her. Straight to voicemail. Then I called Tyler. Same thing. I tried again and again until the screen went dark. When I finally logged into our bank account, the screen nearly knocked the air out of me. Zero. Every cent we'd saved, gone. Our home down payment fund, Eli's medical money, everything. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at that empty account screen while Eli slept in my arms. The rain outside hit the windows hard, like it was mocking me. The next morning, I got a call from my mom. Relief washed over me, thinking maybe she'd heard something. But her voice was cold, detached. "Jace, I heard about Megan. You can't blame her, you know. Maybe if you'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have left." It felt like someone had shoved a knife straight through my chest. "Mom, she left with Tyler," I whispered. There was a pause, too long, too quiet. "Your brother told us. He said she was unhappy." "I'm sorry, Jace, but maybe this is for the best. You two weren't right for each other." The realization hit me harder than any blow. They knew. My parents knew. They knew about Megan and Tyler. Maybe for weeks. Maybe for months. And they said nothing. When I hung up, I couldn't breathe. I walked into Eli's room. He was sitting up in bed, wheezing softly, his little hands clutching his inhaler. His eyes were confused but trusting. "Dad, is Mom coming home?" I sat beside him, my throat tight. "No, buddy. She's gone for a while." He nodded slowly, then leaned against me. "It's okay. I've got you." And just like that, my 5-year-old boy became the only thing keeping me standing. The next few days blurred together. I called the police, filed a report, but they said there was nothing they could do since it was a domestic matter. The money transfer was legal. Both our names were on the account. She'd planned it perfectly. Tyler had quit his job the same week. Their phones were disconnected. It was like they'd vanished. Friends stopped dropping by. Some whispered pity. Others said things like, "Man, you should have seen that coming." Even my coworkers looked at me differently, like I was the fool who couldn't control his own life. One evening, Eli had a coughing fit so bad he couldn't breathe. I rushed him to the ER. The nurse told me the medication he needed had tripled in price since last month. I handed over my last $200, praying it would be enough. That night, I sat on the hospital floor outside Eli's room, staring at the cold tile beneath my feet. My mind kept replaying the moment I read that note. I tried to hate Megan. I tried to hate Tyler. But all I could think was, how could they do this to Eli? When the doctor walked by, he placed a hand on my shoulder. "He's strong," he said softly. "He just needs consistency, care, and love." I nodded, even though I didn't know where to find any of those things anymore. When Eli woke up, his voice was weak but clear. "Dad." "Yeah, buddy. Are we going to be okay?" I wanted to tell him yes. I wanted to promise him the world. But all that came out was a whisper. "I don't know." He smiled, that same crooked grin he had since he was a baby. "It's okay. I'm not scared if you're here." Those words cracked something open inside me. That night, sitting beside his bed, I made a promise, not to Megan, not to my parents, but to Eli. "I don't care what it takes," I whispered. "You'll have a good life. I'll never let you suffer again." And as he slept, his little hand gripping mine, I finally realized something. They thought they'd broken me. But in that hospital room, I started rebuilding, not from pride, not from anger, but from love. It had been 3 days since that phone call. 3 days since Emma said those words that kept echoing in my mind like a broken record. "You can only talk to my lawyer." I hadn't slept properly. My eyes were burning from lack of rest, and my chest felt heavy, like something inside me had cracked open but refused to close. That afternoon, I decided to get out of the house. I needed air, people, noise, anything that didn't sound like my own thoughts. I went to the small cafe near the river, the one Emma and I used to go to every Sunday morning. It was almost empty when I walked in. The smell of roasted coffee beans and baked bread hit me, warm and nostalgic. I took a seat by the window, where sunlight spilled across the wooden table. As I stared outside at the calm river, a voice broke my thoughts. "Rough day." I turned around. A woman stood there, holding a cup of coffee and a small notebook. She looked to be in her early 30s, with sharp brown eyes and a kind smile that seemed to carry its own light. "Something like that," I said quietly. "Mind if I sit?" I nodded, and she slid into the seat across from me. "I'm Clara," she said, holding out her hand. "Mark," I replied, shaking it. Clara looked at me for a moment. "You look like someone who just lost a battle." I let out a weak laugh. "More like the whole war." She smiled sympathetically. "Divorce?" I froze. "How did you?" "I'm a writer," she said, tapping her notebook. "I watch people. And your eyes, they look like someone who's still trying to understand what went wrong." For some reason, I didn't feel defensive. Maybe it was the way she said it. Calm, direct, without judgment. "Yeah," I admitted. "She called me 3 days ago, said she wanted a divorce, and that I could only talk to her lawyer." Clara didn't react with surprise. She just nodded slowly, as if she'd seen that kind of pain before. "I'm sorry," she said. "That's a brutal way to find out. It's worse when you don't even see it coming," I whispered. We sat in silence for a moment, the air thick with unspoken memories. Finally, Clara spoke. "You know, sometimes people don't leave because they stop loving you. They leave because they can't love themselves around you anymore." I frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said softly, "maybe she lost herself in the marriage. And instead of fixing it, she ran." Her words hit something deep inside me. I thought back to all those nights Emma had stayed up late working, all the times she seemed distant, lost in her own world. Maybe I'd been too focused on providing, too focused on being right, that I forgot to ask if she was okay. Clara sipped her coffee and looked out the window. "You can't fix what someone refuses to face. But you can fix yourself. You can heal." I stared at her, unsure how this stranger could understand something that even my closest friends couldn't. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Because I was where you are, 2 years ago. My husband left me with nothing but a note on the kitchen counter. I thought my life was over. But it wasn't. It was just beginning again." Her eyes met mine, and for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. "Do you come here often?" I asked, trying not to sound too desperate. "Every afternoon," she said. "I write stories about broken people who find their way back." I looked at the notebook in her hand. "Maybe one day you'll write mine." She smiled warmly. "Maybe I already am." For the first time since the divorce call, I smiled. It wasn't big. It wasn't bright. But it was real. As I walked out of the cafe that day, the sun felt different. The pain was still there, but so was something else. Something small, fragile, but alive. 3 days after meeting Clara at the cafe, I woke up to a knock at my door. It was early, too early. The sun had barely risen, and the street outside was quiet, wrapped in morning fog. When I opened the door, a man in a black suit stood there, holding a brown envelope. "Mark Turner?" "Yes." He handed me the envelope. "You've been served." Those 3 words hit harder than I expected. He didn't wait for a reply, just turned around and left, his footsteps fading down the stairs. I closed the door, my hands trembling. I knew what it was. The divorce papers. For a long moment, I just stood there staring at the envelope. I didn't want to open it. Opening it would make it real. But eventually, I tore it open. Inside was a letter from Jameson and Brooks, Emma's lawyer firm. At the top, in cold, emotionless font, were the words, "Petition for dissolution of marriage." My chest tightened. I began reading through the legal language. Words that felt foreign but heavy. Irreconcilable differences. Division of property. Spousal support. And then I saw it. Something that made my eyes widen. Respondent is accused of financial misconduct and emotional neglect, contributing to the breakdown of the marriage. I froze. Financial misconduct? Emotional neglect? I felt my blood boil. Emma was accusing me of stealing from her business account. That was a lie. I had helped her start that business. I had worked extra hours, skipped vacations, even sold my car to keep her dream alive. I threw the papers on the table and sat down, my hands shaking. "What the hell is this, Emma?" I muttered under my breath. I tried calling her again, straight to voicemail. I called her lawyer's office. They refused to say anything beyond. All communication must go through legal channels. It felt like a nightmare. A cold, calculated betrayal from the woman I'd built my life with. That evening, Clara called. I didn't even remember giving her my number, but I must have, somewhere between coffee and conversation. "Mark? You sound off. What happened?" I told her everything. The papers, the accusation, the lies. She listened quietly, then said something I didn't expect. "Don't react out of anger. They want you to make mistakes right now. That's how they win." Her tone was calm, steady, like she'd been through this exact fire before. "But she's lying," I said. "She's trying to destroy me." "I know," she replied. "But the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be proven." Her words calmed me down, just a little. That night, I sat at my desk and started gathering everything. Bank statements, receipts, emails, messages, anything that could prove I hadn't touched her money. Hours passed. The clock hit midnight, then 1, then 2. And then, as I was scrolling through old files, I found something that made my heart stop. An email, dated 6 months ago, from Emma's business partner, Andrew. Subject line, "About our arrangement." I clicked it open. "Emma, I've transferred the remaining funds into the new account. Once your lawyer finalizes everything, you'll be free. I hope Mark doesn't suspect anything yet." The words blurred in front of my eyes. Their arrangement? A new account? Free from what? My stomach twisted. The truth started forming, dark and sharp like glass. Emma hadn't just fallen out of love. She'd been planning this. She'd moved money, built a case, and set me up to take the fall. I leaned back in my chair, the email still glowing on my screen. All this time, I'd been blaming myself, wondering what I did wrong. But maybe it wasn't me after all. I saved the email to a flash drive, printed a copy, and slid it into a folder. If Emma wanted to play this game through lawyers, fine. But this time, I wasn't going to sit quietly and bleed. As I turned off the lights and looked out the window, the city looked different. Colder, sharper. But somewhere in that darkness, a fire had been lit inside me. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't just a broken husband. I was a man preparing for war. The courthouse smelled like old paper and stale coffee. My hands were slick with sweat as I sat at the defendant's table, staring at the polished wood floor. Every creak of a chair, every cough from the audience echoed like thunder in my ears. Across the aisle, Emma sat with her lawyer, perfectly composed, hair pulled back, dressed in that same confident way I once admired. My brother Kyle sat behind her, looking smug. Their faces carried the same calm arrogance, like they had already won. They thought I was finished. The bailiff called for order, and Judge Hampton entered the courtroom. His gavel hit once, sharp and final. "Case number 4527, he said. "Turner versus Turner." I exhaled slowly. 10 years of my life had led to this moment. Emma's lawyer, Mr. Brooks, began with his usual theatrics. Your Honor, my client has suffered greatly due to Mr. Turner's financial irresponsibility and emotional neglect. We have provided documented proof of missing funds from her business account, along with evidence that Mr. Turner failed to support his family financially during a critical period. Every sentence stabbed deeper. I clenched my jaw, waiting for my turn. Then it came. Mr. Turner, the judge said, you may respond. I stood up, my knees slightly weak, but my voice steady. Your Honor, everything you've heard is a lie, carefully constructed to destroy my reputation and take away what little I have left. But I have proof. I glanced at Clara, who sat quietly in the back row. She nodded. That same calm, reassuring nod that kept me from falling apart. I handed the flash drive to my lawyer, Mr. Jensen, who loaded it onto the screen. Exhibit A, he announced. The courtroom projector flickered to life, showing the email. Emma, I've transferred the remaining funds into the new account. Once your lawyer finalizes everything, you'll be free. I hope Mark doesn't suspect anything yet. Andrew. A collective murmur swept through the courtroom. Emma's face turned pale. Kyle's smirk vanished. Even Mr. Brooks blinked twice, clearly not expecting this. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Turner, care to explain this email? Emma's voice cracked. It's taken out of context. Mr. Jensen didn't let up. Your Honor, we also have bank records showing a series of transfers from Mrs. Turner's business account to a joint account under her name and Andrew Cooper, her business partner, dated 6 months before the separation. The courtroom gasped again. Emma's jaw tightened. She tried to speak, but the judge raised his hand. Mrs. Turner, were you aware that these transactions occurred before your accusations of misconduct? Emma fumbled. It wasn't like that. Mark he wasn't supportive. I cut in, unable to stay silent any longer. I was the one who supported her dream. I built the shelves in her store. I stayed up nights doing inventory while she slept. I believed in her more than I believed in myself. My voice echoed through the courtroom. And this is how she repaid me. The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that makes even breathing feel loud. Emma lowered her head, her hands trembling slightly. Kyle whispered something to her, but she didn't answer. The judge turned to Mr. Brooks. Counselor, do you wish to continue pursuing your claims? Mr. Brooks hesitated. No, Your Honor. Given the new evidence, we withdraw the accusation of misconduct. Good, Judge Hampton said. Because if I see any further attempt to manipulate this court, I'll hold your client in contempt. When the gavel struck, it felt like a thunderclap of justice. But I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. I just sat back down exhausted. Winning the case didn't mean I'd won my life back. Not yet. After court adjourned, I walked outside into the cold afternoon air. Reporters lingered near the steps, whispering. Emma brushed past me, refusing to make eye contact. Kyle followed, looking like he wanted to say something. Maybe an apology, maybe another lie, but I didn't give him the chance. I turned and walked away. Clara caught up to me at the bottom of the stairs. You did it, she said softly. You cleared your name. I looked at her, my chest heavy. Yeah, but it doesn't feel like a victory. Give it time, she said. You'll see. As we stood there, Eli's face flashed in my mind. His little smile, his quiet bravery. I realized then that clearing my name wasn't just about revenge. It was about making sure he grew up knowing the truth. Knowing his father didn't quit. That night, I visited Eli's grave. I hadn't been there in months. I knelt down, brushing the leaves away from the stone. I did it, buddy, I whispered. They tried to bury me, but I stood tall for you. For us. The wind rustled the trees, soft and cold, and for a moment, just a moment, I thought I heard his laugh again. I smiled through the tears. Rest easy, my boy. It's not over yet. Because somewhere deep inside, I knew Emma and Kyle weren't finished. People like them never learn until karma comes knocking. And soon it would. 10 years can change everything. The pain, the noise, the heartbreak, they all fade, replaced by something stronger. Purpose. I moved out of the small town where everyone whispered behind my back and started fresh in Denver. I rebuilt my life piece by piece. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't fast, but it was mine. I worked construction during the day and studied business management online at night. Every brick I laid, every test I passed, I thought of Eli. My boy. My reason. Clara stayed in touch those first few years. She was a quiet constant in my life. A friend, maybe something more, though neither of us ever said it. She helped me register my own construction company, Turner Restoration, and pushed me to believe I could make it on my own. And eventually, I did. Within 5 years, the business grew from a one-man operation to a crew of 40. We started getting contracts to renovate old homes, historic buildings, even small hospitals. By year 8, Turner Restoration had become one of the top renovation firms in Colorado. But success didn't erase the past. I still carried it. The betrayal, the silence from my parents, the loss of my son. I had learned to live with it, but it was still there, like a scar you stop noticing until someone touches it again. And one day, someone did. It started with a phone call. My assistant, Maria, buzzed in. "Jace, there's a woman here to see you. She says her name is Emma Turner." I froze. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. "Emma?" I repeated. "Yes, and she's with a man named Kyle Turner." I let out a long, slow breath. 10 years. 10 years of silence. And suddenly they were here, in my office. "Send them in," I said. When they walked through the door, time folded in on itself. Emma looked different. Older, thinner, her confidence dulled by something I couldn't quite name. Kyle, too, had changed. His expensive suit didn't hide the nervous tapping of his fingers or the deep lines etched around his mouth. "Jace," Emma began softly. "It's been a long time." I nodded. "It has." She smiled weakly. "You look well." "I am." Kyle stepped forward, his fake charm still intact. "Heard you're doing big things now. Turner Restoration. That's impressive." "Thanks," I said flatly. There was a heavy pause. Then Emma spoke again. "We didn't come to talk about the past. We're here because we need help." I almost laughed. "Help? From me?" Kyle swallowed hard. "Things haven't been easy. The business Emma started, it went under during the pandemic. We made some bad investments. The house is gone." I leaned back in my chair. "And?" Emma's voice cracked. "We need work. A chance to start over." I stared at them. The two people who had burned my life to ashes, asking me for mercy. For a long moment, I said nothing. I just studied their faces. The arrogance was gone. The laughter, the cruelty, gone. All that remained were two broken people who'd thought they'd never fall. "Why me?" I asked quietly. Emma looked down. "Because you're the only one who's doing well. And we thought maybe you'd forgive you." I cut in. She hesitated. "Yes." The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I finally stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the skyline, at the buildings my company had helped restore. "You know," I said, "for years I blamed myself. For your choices. For losing everything. I thought I wasn't enough, as a husband, as a brother, as a son. But I was wrong. I was just surrounded by people who couldn't see value beyond money or convenience." Emma looked like she wanted to cry. Kyle stayed silent, staring at the floor. "You didn't just hurt me," I continued. "You hurt my son. You left him when he was sick. You never once asked about him after he passed." Emma covered her mouth. Her eyes welled with tears. I couldn't face it. "That's the problem," I said. "You never could face anything." For a long moment, none of us spoke. Then I turned and pointed to the door. "There's a shelter downtown that helps people rebuild their lives. Tell them Jace Turner sent you. They'll find you something." Emma blinked. "You won't help us yourself?" "I just did," I said. Kyle's voice cracked with anger. "You think you're better than us now?" "No," I replied calmly. "I just think I finally learned what kind of people not to trust." I walked around my desk and opened the door. "Good luck, Kyle." Emma. They stood there for a few seconds, unsure what to do, before walking out, defeated, silent. When the door closed behind them, I sat back down, exhaling deeply. My hands were steady. My heart wasn't racing. I expected to feel triumph. But instead, I just felt peace. Later that night, I called Clara. "They came back," I said quietly. She paused. "And?" I let them walk away. There was a smile in her voice. "Then you finally let go." I looked out at the Denver skyline, the city lights glowing like stars. For the first time in a decade, the past didn't hurt anymore. I thought of Eli, his laugh, his strength, the way he used to tell me, "Dad, we'll be okay." He'd been right. We were okay. But what I didn't know then was that this wasn't the end. Not yet. Because the next morning, I'd wake up to a phone call that would change everything again. One that would prove my son's memory still had the power to make the people who betrayed us truly regret what they'd done. The next morning, my phone rang at 6:12 a.m. It was Maria, my assistant. Her voice trembled slightly. "Jace, I think you need to see this." She sent me a link. It was an article from a local news outlet. Former business couple accused of charity fraud. Kyle and Emma Turner under investigation. My heart skipped a beat. The story detailed how Kyle and Emma had tried to start a nonprofit foundation after visiting me, claiming they wanted to help sick children, but instead siphoned off the donations for themselves. Their names were plastered across headlines, their photos spread across social media. The world finally saw what I had seen years ago. For once, I didn't feel anger or even satisfaction. I just felt closure. By noon, they were both trending, and not in the way anyone wanted. People who once defended them turned their backs. Their old friends stopped answering calls. Their reputation crumbled faster than their lies ever rose. Later that day, I received another email, this one from Eli's old hospital foundation. It was from Dr. Matthews, the pediatric specialist who had taken care of Eli. "Mr. Turner, we've just received a generous anonymous donation in Eli's name, enough to fund a new wing for children's respiratory care. The donor requested the project be titled the Eli Turner Recovery Center. We thought you should know." I froze. Tears welled in my eyes. I called the hospital right away. "Who donated it?" The receptionist said, "Sir, the donor didn't leave a name, but they left a message, because one little boy taught me what real strength is." I hung up slowly, my throat tightening. Maybe it was Clara. Maybe it was one of the people who had heard Eli's story through the years. The story I had shared quietly, one project at a time, one life rebuilt at a time. Or maybe, in some unexplainable way, it was Eli's doing. The next week, I was invited to the ribbon-cutting ceremony. The new building stood tall and bright. White walls, blue glass windows, and a golden plaque that read, "The Eli Turner Recovery Center, a place for healing and hope." As I stood there, the crowd clapping around me, I felt something shift deep inside. 10 years ago, I had stood in a cold courtroom, broken, alone. Now, I was standing in front of a building that would help hundreds of sick kids, all in the name of my son. When I looked up, I saw Emma and Kyle in the crowd, standing far off. They looked smaller somehow, worn down by their own choices. Emma's eyes met mine. She didn't say a word, but the guilt in her face said everything. She turned away, clutching Kyle's arm, and they disappeared into the crowd. That was the last time I ever saw them. As the ceremony ended, I walked through the hallways of the center. The walls were painted with murals of children playing, and near the entrance hung a photograph of Eli, smiling, brave, full of light. Clara joined me, her hand brushing mine. "He'd be proud of you," she said softly. I smiled through the tears. "No," I said, "he'd be proud of us. Because Eli wasn't just my son. He was the reason I rebuilt my life. The heartbeat behind every home I restored, every wall I rebuilt, every life I touched. And somehow, through that, he'd made them all regret it. Not through vengeance, but through grace." That's the thing about karma. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it just whispers in the wind, reminding those who betrayed you that they can never outrun what they did. As I stood beneath the sign bearing my son's name, I finally felt peace. Not the fragile kind, but the kind that comes from knowing you've turned pain into purpose. I whispered quietly, "We did it, Eli. We really did." The wind rustled through the trees, almost like he was answering back. And that's how life came full circle. From betrayal and loss to forgiveness and legacy. If you've made it this far, I want to ask you something. Do you believe people can truly change after betraying someone they love? Or do you think karma always finds its way back, just like it did here? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, please give it a like, share it with someone who might need hope today, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful real-life stories like this one. Thank you for listening, my friends. This is Jace's story, and maybe, in some way, it's yours too. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and never lose faith in your own comeback.